I'm a beta living in an ABO novel. Yep, that kind of beta who gets dragged out of bed by domineering alpha CEOs at midnight to treat their pampered omega lovers. Ahem. Intimate injuries in luxury mansions. I also moonlight as a butler, telling each new omega Mr. Wilson has never brought anyone home before. You're the first. As expected, the young omega immediately blushes with pleasure. But this current golden canary is different. He throws John's check under the bed like it's an insult. I don't want your money. If it's not money he wants, then it must be love? John's getting annoyed and snaps. No money? Then get out. The omega's eyes well up with tears. He chokes out, John, I'm pregnant. Well damn. Someone's knocked up. I slow down my tidying to eavesdrop. John shows zero paternal joy. His face stormy. I always used protection. Pregnant? Whose bastard is it? The omega looks devastated. John Wilson. Have you no heart? I wear your temporary mark every day. Who else could I? John cuts him off. Abort it or get out. I won't have my fun ruined. He storms off without looking back. The omega trembles like he's finally understanding corporate ruthlessness. I sigh, placing the check by his hand. I want to advise him, but remembering the plot, better respect his destiny. This is one of those classic ABO novels featuring toxic relationships and grand romantic gestures. The male leads are John Wilson and Ethan Smith, the current golden canary. Despite cheating, abandonment, assault, multiple ICU visits, Ethan eventually forgives John, marries him, births triplets, and lives spoiled forever. Me? I get shot by John when Ethan gets jealous. After gaining self-awareness, I immediately cut ties with John and studied abroad. I only recently returned. Walking downstairs, I find John smoking in the courtyard. The haze softens his sharp features, momentarily reviving memories of our youth when he'd say I like Lucas best. How is he? Even soulmates have their limits. John still cares. I smile gently. Physically recovered, but emotionally, John darkens. Pathetic. Omegas are delicate. You should comfort him. The CEO who only receives comfort snorts. He's the only one I keep around. Isn't that enough? What a martyr. Keeping my expression neutral, I suggest. Let's get drinks? John's mood lifts. Lucas, you always know best. At the bar, John summons his cronies. They openly discuss private matters. Someone proposes. If your omega cries too much, try a beta? No heats, stable moods. And the man leers. Sturdier bodies that don't get pregnant. Implied. Easier to use and discard. John freezes mid-sip, glancing at me. The speaker finally notices my presence. Lucas, no offense meant. I adjust my glasses. None taken. But the atmosphere chills. I excuse myself. I'll get another drink. Behind me, the conversation reignites. Seriously though, Lucas has got those long legs and that strict suit. Mr. Wilson, never been tempted? Total ice queen. If he weren't so unapproachable, never mind. I was just sitting next to him earlier, barely daring to breathe, like admiring a beautiful person from afar. I walked to the bar and ordered a low-alcohol cocktail, sipping it slowly. When John approached, I was chatting with a well-built alpha. The alpha had grabbed my hand to feel his sculpted abs, impressively toned. I even lifted his shirt for a better look before flashing him a smile. The excited alpha tried reaching for me again when John slapped his hand away. Get lost. As the alpha bristled with anger, John unleashed his S-grade pheromones in oppressive waves. The man eventually retreated pale-faced. I sat quietly through it all. Lucas, John began, if you want a date, he hesitated. I could introduce you to someone decent. Barflies are unreliable. I laughed until tears gathered, draping an arm over John's shoulder. John, CEO extraordinaire, since when did you start insulting yourself? Leaning close, John caught subtle sandalwood notes beneath my scent, warm yet aloof, paradoxically inviting conquest. His gaze momentarily glazed over. When my laughter subsided, I trailed fingers along his waistline. I prefer men with physiques. My eyelashes fluttered, crimson-tinged corners radiating icy allure perfected through hundreds of mirror rehearsals. At least matching yours. John's grip tightened on his glass as his other arm snaked around my waist, pulling me flush against him. Click. The faint sound became audible during the DJ's transition. We turned simultaneously to find Ethan weeping pearl, like tears, his white shirt glowing angelically in the dimness. "I hate you," Ethan choked out before stumbling toward the exit. I nudged John's hip. "Go after him. This area's crawling with opportunists. His unstable pheromones could attract trouble." John snapped into motion. With my target gone, I left without acknowledging his friends. Home revealed Michael's silhouette framed by moonlight on the terrace. My shoulders tensed anew. He turned, wintry gaze sharpening into invisible daggers. I stood frozen by the entryway, shoes forgotten. "Michael." After 2 heartbeats, he acknowledged with a gravelly hum. "Can't sleep?" I ventured while changing shoes. The clink of his water glass against marble answered first. "I don't care to monitor your affairs." Michael's voice carried glacial detachment. "But clean off alpha pheromones before returning home next time." Heat flooded my cheeks. Affairs? Pheromones? Just had drinks with John earlier. Uninterested. His Lamborghini's roar soon punctuated the night as I sank into the bath, finally breathing freely. My tense shoulders finally relaxed as I slowly sank into the water. Lucas Johnson and I were probably playing the roles of illegitimate offspring fighting for inheritance. Though fighting might be too strong a word currently, it's just my one-sided assumption. Michael never gave me a second glance. Not like how John dismissed people due to ABO dynamics, but the kind of disregard reserved for inconvenient objects by those wielding absolute power. Most of our generation coasted on family prestige. Michael was different. He'd already surpassed our father's generation. Ruthlessly logical, ice-cold in his arrogance. No one in the younger crowd could match his intimidating presence. I was terrified of him. Other alphas might want to play with my body or emotions, but Michael, I suspected he'd toy with my life if ever displeased. Maybe Mom's too. Days passed without John's calls, as if he was avoiding me. Gossip reached me about his new flame, some aloof beta. "Lucas, you should have seen it," our mutual friend gushed. "John's practically groveling, ready to pluck stars from the sky for him." "Really?" I smiled. "Found his true love? See for yourself tomorrow. Royal Palace Hotel, 7 sharp." John hosted the banquet to introduce his beta into our circle. Everyone clamored for his attention, but he only acknowledged close friends. Naturally, they turned to fawn over his frosty companion. When I entered, John's assistant whispered. Heads turned. Gasps erupted as they saw my face. The less tactful immediately checked the beta's reaction. John, apparently unaware I'd come, instinctively shielded him. "Lucas, what are you doing here?" I clinked champagne flutes with him. "Should I leave?" The motion revealed the beta's face. 5/10 my likeness 6 if not for his drained complexion. "Daniel, I presume?" "Lucas." John's childhood friend. Daniel's knuckles whitened around his glass. Snickers spread through previously snubbed guests. Serves the copycat right, acting all high and mighty. Who could replace the real Johnson air? Moonlight versus cheap imitation. I leaned closer to John, voice low yet carrying. Startling resemblance. Almost thought Mom had twins. Daniel lunged. I dodged backward but still caught his nails across my jaw. Blood trickled down my neck as John shouted, "Lucas, stay away from him." Daniel screamed, tearfully grabbing John. The S-Class Alpha's retaliatory slap sent teeth flying. "Never show your face here again." I stepped forward and took John Wilson's hand, speaking softly. "John, don't be angry. I'm fine." Daniel White's gaze looked murderous. This drama trended on Twitter that same day, spreading like wildfire through our social circle. When paparazzi caught John gifting me a sports car as apology, rumors about our engagement started swirling. I laughed off the speculation, though John maintained deliberate ambiguity, neither confirming nor denying. At charity galas, his arm would casually drift around my waist. Many assumed I was playing hard to get, dredging up our old college romance to fuel media frenzy. Tabloids declared Manhattan's most notorious playboy finally settling down. Back in Yale days, you ignored everyone except John. If you hadn't studied abroad, there'd never have been those other flings. My mother chided during our weekly call. The Johnsons and Wilsons have been family friends for generations. Everyone's thrilled you're finally together. Mom, don't believe everything you read. Your father wants to know when you'll bring John for dinner. We're not even officially dating. I protested, just as Michael walked through the penthouse doors. I quickly amended, but of course that depends on John's intentions. I just hope I'm not reading this wrong. Flushing slightly at being overheard, I greeted, "You're home early, Michael." Our mother promptly ended the call. The heir to Brown Enterprises shrugged off his Brioni coat. I moved to hang it up, my fingers brushing cold wool. He smelled of juniper and single malt. Michael's version of Casual Friday apparently included midday drinking. Dad wants us at the estate tomorrow. Of course. He lingered despite finished conversation. Under the foyer chandelier, the 6'2" alpha male cast shadows that engulfed my frame. Calloused fingers tilted my chin, examining the fading scratch from last week's altercation. Daniel's manicure did this? It's healed. Michael. He snorted dismissively, retreating upstairs. I touched where his hand had been, sensing unspoken warnings. The next morning found us at David's medical suite. The patriarch's hormone imbalance syndrome was transforming the once formidable CEO into a frail shadow, every alpha's worst nightmare. Today he'd mustered strength to discuss family business. While Michael reviewed quarterly reports, our mother grilled me about John between sips of Darjeeling. But if he keeps this wishy-washy attitude, I'm still chasing, I interjected during their pause. You deserve certainty. She smoothed my hair. My Lucas should have clear devotion. Lunch brought the real agenda. David set down his fork. Michael, I want Lucas on the board. I choked on my Chardonnay. My wide-eyed glance at Mom found equal shock. Across the table, Michael's steak knife screeched against china. The air thickened with bergamot and tension. Michael continued eating his food as if he hadn't heard. David repeated his words, and Michael's chopsticks clattered against the plate. The Brown family rules were strict. Juniors shouldn't stop eating before elders. My mother and I practically buried our faces in our rice bowls to avoid collateral damage. As long as other board members agree, I have no objections, Michael said flatly. The board danced to his tune anyway. This was clearly a polite refusal. I'm giving you direct instructions. David's voice carried decades of boardroom authority. How you achieve it's your business. I only care about results. Michael remained stubborn. The corporation has established procedures. Michael, I'm still breathing. David's fist hit the table. Michael stopped arguing but maintained eye contact without backing down. My mother tried to intervene. I kicked her under the table. Were we supposed to side with David? Offend the family patriarch whose numerous illegitimate children waited in the wings? Or support Michael and get crushed by the current CEO's wrath? Undeterred, my mother blurted, Lucas is still young. Let him enjoy his freedom a few more years. Holy hell, that sounded exactly like we coveted Michael's power. The CEO's frosty gaze immediately locked onto me. I stammered, Dad, Michael, I'm only 21. The board would eat me alive. At your age, your brother already controlled 3 subsidiaries. David countered. Michael's exceptional. I could never compare. I swallowed hard. But I did get accepted into the Corporate Research Institute yesterday. My mother finally caught on. Exactly. Lucas loves lab work. Business management might as well be ancient Greek to him. Let him support Michael quietly. Can we please eat before my heart gives out? When we left the hospital, Michael sped off in his Mercedes. I ran after him, fingers gripping the window frame. Michael, I swear I didn't know Dad would say that. The research position was merit-based. I'll never pull family strings. Please don't be angry. His assistant pried my hands off the car. Tires screeched as Michael drove away. I stood there with red-rimmed eyes until the taillights disappeared, perfecting the image of a chastened younger brother. Shall I call you a cab, Mr. Johnson? Michael's assistant Jacob offered comfortingly. Before I could answer, a familiar voice interrupted. Lucas? John stood there looking uncomfortable. My gaze dropped to the omega he'd hastily released. Heartache flashed across my face before I smiled warmly. New boyfriend? He's gorgeous. The omega blushed, previous hostility melting. John cleared his throat. Did Mr. Brown tell you? Jacob whispered. Mr. Brown saw Mr. Wilson at last night's arranged marriage meeting. This must have been what Michael tried to mention earlier. My smile became brittle enough to crack. John mumbled excuses before fleeing. Jacob had the full report within minutes. The Wilsons had heard about our relationship rumors. The Johnson family didn't want a sterile beta who couldn't conceive. Unable to touch me, they began aggressively introducing omegas to John. They're undergoing pheromone compatibility testing at the hospital. I instructed my assistant. Higher compatibility scores increased the likelihood of producing elite alpha or omega offspring. No matter the actual result, change it to 80%. Typically, even 70% was considered rare. The Wilsons, with their sky-high standards, would keep dangling this omega while searching for higher matches, buying me precious time. Understood. Lucas. My assistant Jiang soon nodded. Shall I arrange your research institute placement? Maintain our current distance. I slid into the car he opened, exhaling sharply. No wonder David rushed me into the board, boosting my marriage prospects to the Wilsons. Their abandoned hormone regulation research could revolutionize treatment for rare disorders, but profit-driven priorities favored mass-market suppressants. Dialing a contact, I ordered, lure Ethan to Royal Emperor this weekend. John's reunion with Ethan proved dramatic. Ethan knelt scrubbing an alpha's shoes with his waiter jacket. When the alpha kicked him, John charged like a territorial lion, beating the aggressor before cradling Ethan. The omega I'd paid $100,000 to disappear watched bitterly from the shadows. Lucas, check Ethan for injuries, John demanded. Complied, smiling. Their rekindled affair bloomed alongside John's arranged omega courtships. Wealthy, connected, irresistible, he kept them all. I played the devoted fool, treating his lover's wounds, paying off clingy suitors, pretending to be his one true love during family matchmaking farces. You're perfect. John sighed during cocktails with friends. Why don't you two marry? Someone prodded. Lucas adores you, doesn't mind your extracurriculars. My bittersweet smile hid triumph. As scandals erupted, Mrs. Wilson's botched rape plot against me, Ethan's suicide threats, John's dependence deepened. I'll marry you, Lucas, he vowed after storming out of family negotiations. I trust you, I soothed, hanging up. The chessboard shifted, medical patents, boardroom influence, and John's escalating guilt all aligning. Soon, the Wilsons' empire would kneel before the devoted omega they'd underestimated. John rambled on and on. Growing impatient, I threw on some clothes and went downstairs for a drink. The refrigerator was stocked with lychee sodas that Michael loved, but I couldn't stand. I grabbed one anyway, popping the tab to take 2 forced sips as John's droning continued through my phone. John, I finally interrupted in honeyed tones. I know, darling. I love you. I'll wait. The line went dead with his satisfaction. As I closed the fridge door, movement caught my eye. Michael stood framed in the pantry entrance, damp hair clinging to his neck. The cramped space suddenly felt airless. Didn't realize you were home, I stammered. His towel, draped shoulders glistened under refrigerator light, water tracing paths down his throat. Iris-scented steam still clung to him. My gaze snagged on the inflamed gland at his nape-rut cycle. No wonder the staff had vanished. Thirsty? I pressed against shelving as he approached, my knuckles whitening around the soda can. His palm scorched through silk pajamas when he snatched it from me. Clang. Aluminum hit the trash bin. That was mine. I managed, fingers still brushing his feverish wrist. Michael turned, lashes shadowing his eyes as he trapped my hand against chilled stainless steel. Taking what isn't yours, he murmured, breath fogging between us. My throat tightened. Sorry, I whispered, ducking my head. That night found me restocking every fridge with lychee sodas. I laid out suppressant patches, fever reducers, and 3 discrete omega contacts, strictly precautionary. For 2 days, Michael's bedroom door stayed shut except when I delivered chilled water and fresh towels. On the 3rd midnight, I found him shirtless before floor-to-ceiling windows, ice cubes clinking against his water glass. Moonlight carved his silhouette in mercury. Shouldn't you be resting? I eyed the empty injector on his nightstand. He turned, droplets tracking down his spine. Another dose. The command rasped raw. I reached for the medical kit, careful not to touch what wasn't offered. The glass shattered against the wall as I prepared the injection, amber liquid spreading across hardwood like forbidden honey. Michael walked over and sat down with his back to me. I took his water glass, the icy surface nearly slipping from my grasp. The inhibitors will take effect soon. You shouldn't drink so much cold water while running a fever, Michael. Years of training had sculpted his back muscles into lean, defined lines that flexed taut beneath his shirt, the kind of physique that'd make any Omega weak need. His scent gland glowed red. Curiosity got the better of me. What do your pheromones smell like, Michael? He turned with eyes darkened by rut-induced desire, the faintest tremor in his voice as he answered, oud and agarwood. On the first morning after Michael's rut subsided, I finally received the Research Institute's work notification. As he fastened his suit buttons, I rose on tiptoe to loop his tie. Thank you, I murmured with practiced admiration, lingering just long enough for my knuckles to brush his collar. The institute housed brilliant minds allergic to administrative tasks. Director Sun had discovered my past experience as a faculty assistant during an academic exchange, promptly drafting me for all future conferences. This New York summit included Michael but not Jiang-sun instead, some wide-eyed assistant who'd clearly watched too many rom-coms. She misfiled reports, spilled lattes on documents, and once served cilantro-laced wraps despite Michael's documented aversion. When his storm cloud expression reduced her to sniffles, I intervened with my dry-cleaned lap blanket. Use this, Mr. Brown. His lethal gaze shifted from her trembling form to my steady hands. In New York, she shadowed me like a lost puppy. Where's the third drawer? I'd sigh, already re-alphabetizing her chaos. The final straw came when room service delivered parsley-garnished steak. I swapped it for plain filet mignon seconds before Michael noticed. She was on a flight home before dessert arrived. Director Sun raised an eyebrow. You'll handle his schedule until the replacement comes? My smile didn't waver. Of course. 7 sugar coffees prepped at 6:03 a.m. Dossiers emailed precisely 2 hours pre-meeting. Silent cues during galas, left pinky twitch meant Senator Whitmore approaching. Even the densest colleagues joked I'd make every executive assistant obsolete. Tonight's whiskey-heavy fundraiser left Michael massaging his temples in the suite. I retrieved my migraine relief headset. What's this? Helps with tension. Securing the band. I tried not to stare at the exposed vulnerability. The strong jaw slackened, lips parted in rare repose. Tomorrow's agenda? He murmured. I still closed. Morning lecture. Afternoon lab tour. More casual atmosphere. My fingers hovered between charcoal suits before selecting slate gray with cornflower ascot. No tie tomorrow. They'll want approachable. The headset's soft hum filled the silence as I memorized the new rhythm of his breathing. Michael Brown removed the massage device and glanced over, his composed features relaxing. You handle it. After touring Kate Research Institute, we awaited the legal department's contract drafting. Michael granted us a day off. A senior lab member dragged me along to pick gifts for his girlfriend. Remembering Michael's missing cufflinks for tomorrow's suit, I joined the shopping trip. 3 hours later, I settled on sapphire cufflinks. My colleagues slumped in the VIP seating, stunned by the price tags. Lucas, you're practically worshipping Mr. Brown. I smiled, requesting engraving of Michael's initials on the cufflink backs. Drizzles greeted our return to the hotel. In the lobby, we encountered Michael fresh from outdoors. Handing him the box during his phone call, I watched him pocket it absently. Emerging from dinner hours later, we found him still on the phone by the lake, the rain matting his hair and suit. As we approached with an umbrella, he abruptly ended the call. Retrieving the cufflinks, he examined them momentarily before snapping the case shut and pitching it into the water. My colleague studied my expression. The lake's modest size didn't prevent a 4-hour search. He offered help, which I refused, eventually fishing out the sodden case. Suddenly repulsed, I shoved it at him. Thanks for tonight. Keep these, took ages to pick. Next morning brought new assistants pairing Michael with charcoal suits. His imperious aura returned. I retreated to the group's rear during presentations. My colleague's sapphire cufflinks glittered under the stage lights during his speech. Michael's sudden backward glance met my window-focused avoidance. Post-business trip, our paths diverged completely separate corporate buildings. Deliberate home avoidance. Months later, a hospital summons reunited us with David Taylor and the Wilsons present. Mrs. Wilson clasped my hand with daughter-in-law praises. David announced, "We approve your union with John. Set the engagement dates." John Wilson embraced my shoulders. "Told you I'd make it happen." The Wilsons granted the Johnson family's research collaboration. David allocated 10% equity shares as my dowry. Engagement gala next week. David beamed paternalistically. Mrs. Wilson chimed, "Perfect timing for corporate contracts signing. Double celebrations." I instinctively glanced at Michael. Michael watched the scene like a spectator at a farce, sneered coldly, and turned to leave. David stopped him. "Michael, have the legal department draft that contract immediately." Michael turned back, eyes filled with scorn, directed at the Wilson family, David, and at me. "You're free to pimp out your bastard son for favors. But remember, I'm the executive director now." "Michael." David hurled a water glass across the room in fury. My mother rushed to grab his arm, eyes pleading through unshed tears. "Please stop." Michael slammed the door behind him. The Johnson-Wilson alliance marriage proceeded as scheduled. Every influential figure in New York City received an invitation. But 2 days before the ceremony, the Wilsons backed out. They'd found an Omega with 100% hormonal compatibility to John Ryan Smith, the long-lost heir recently reclaimed by the Smith dynasty. The Smith fortune dwarfed whatever empty promises David had offered. Worse, Ryan was already pregnant with John's child. Rumor said prenatal testing showed a 70% chance of the baby developing into an S-class alpha. The engagement party continued, simply swapping Lucas for Ryan as John's intended. David panicked. The Smiths happened to be Michael's maternal relatives. Ryan's grandfather was Michael's biological grandfather. When David had cheated on Michael's pregnant mother decades ago, his mistresses had brazenly confronted her. The severely depressed woman had walked into the ocean with her unborn child. The Smith patriarch had sworn vengeance ever since. If the Johnson-Wilson merger succeeded, David could kiss his precious hormonal disorder research project goodbye. Useless. David struggled upright from his hospital bed and slapped me. With my mother mysteriously absent, I took the blow head-on. He wheezed, jabbing a finger at my face. "I gave you company shares. You couldn't even keep an alpha who already liked you. What good are you?" His tirade lasted 30 venomous minutes before exhaustion collapsed him back onto the pillows. Returning home, I nearly collided with Michael in the foyer. I stepped back to let him pass first. His gaze lingered on the fresh bruise across my cheekbone. He said nothing. What was there to say? We'd been adversaries since birth. The hospital called at 3 a.m. David was raging about my missing mother. Her phone rang endlessly without answer. I threw on a coat and raced out into the knife-edged winter night. By dawn, John abandoned his own engagement party to find me shivering outside the hospital. "Lucas, come warm up," he urged, opening his car door. A DVD case tumbled onto the asphalt. The footage showed my mother blindfolded and shackled. Dangling from a cliffside I recognized from Michael's study, the same spot in his cherished childhood photo with his mother and grandfather. The coastal area where my mother's ashes rested was her favorite place in life. With bloodshot eyes, I silently grabbed the car keys to leave. John blocked the driver's door. "Lucas, where are you going?" "Wait for me, I'll call reinforcements immediately." I swung the baseball bat from the passenger seat at John's restraining hands. As he dodged, I slammed the accelerator. The speedometer climbed with my burning rage. The Smiths, how dare they? Every rational thought evaporated. I'd slaughter every last Smith with my bare hands. Their security intercepted my car near Smith Manor. John forcibly dragged me from the vehicle. I spun around and punched his jaw. "Lucas, snap out of it." His bleeding lip momentarily grounded me. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Mr. Johnson, your mother's safe with me." Daniel's voice flooded me with relief before darkness claimed me. I woke in a hospital bed to John's silhouette on the balcony, fielding endless calls about the Smiths and his parents. He hurried over when I stirred. How are you feeling, Lucas? Fine. I want to go home. After this 4. His phone kept ringing until he powered it off. Go handle business. Assistant, you can stay. He hesitated until I squeezed his hand. No more reckless moves. Promise. Later, I learned John had abandoned his engagement party to search for me. While the Johnsons became social pariahs, the Smiths now wore matching scarlet letters. Mr. Wilson clearly favors the Johnson heir over that Smith bastard with the accidental pregnancy. Society whispered. Childhood sweethearts always trump gold diggers. Others concurred. Assistant, you brought water. Observing quietly. Mr. Wilson's devotion is genuine, sir. I let the misunderstanding linger, forcing a bitter smile. Is it? My pause betrayed me. And Ethan? Mr. Wilson's past infatuation died during the pregnancy blackmail. His meaningful glance implied I should heed the warning. The Smiths remained oblivious that I'd replaced Mom's guards. When their latest threat arrived, greed loses everything. I stood rain, soaked for hours, playing devastated. Michael found me half drunk in our liquor-scented penthouse. For the first time, I didn't rush to serve him. Michael stood in the entryway watching me for several moments before stepping inside to open the living room windows after changing his shoes. The icy wind knocked empty liquor bottles onto the carpet with dull thuds. I looked up with bloodshot eyes, my voice hoarse as I whispered, Michael. Only the desk lamp illuminated the room. From behind the sofa, Michael remained shadowed, his features indistinguishable. Reaching for the bottle on the coffee table, I tilted it to my lips only to have him snatch it away. Enough. Go to your room. I released the bottle but stayed seated. He didn't move either. When our eyes met, his handsome face twisted in familiar disgust. Blinking hard, fat tears splashed onto my knees. Am I really that worthless, Michael? He remained silent. Not that I expected answers. Smearing tears across my sleeve, I continued, a useless beta who can't even be traded in marriage. The man who claims to love me sleeps with others, replaced me at the altar. 17 years trying to earn your basic decency only made you hate me more. And Mom, my throat closed, fresh tears overflowing. Where is she? Michael? What do I need to do to get her back? Clutching his sleeve, I begged, I'll surrender my shares. Quit the research institute. If you let Mom go, we'll disappear from the Johnson family forever. Please. She spent decades putting you first. Doesn't that count for anything? My weeping dissolved into broken hiccups, the muffled, shameful crying of someone who's learned never to make noise. Michael, perpetually composed and proper, stood rigidly as my tears darkened his shirt. He should have denied everything, claimed ignorance about my mother's disappearance, pretended the Smiths' bloody retaliation against his grandfather's enemies didn't benefit him. This was his victory, wasn't it? The board seat cleared through Mom's abduction, the last obstacle removed. Yet his knuckles whitened around the bottle, breath coming as ragged as mine. Eventually, the tears ran dry, rising on unsteady legs. I kept my gaze lowered. Sorry about your shirt. I'll find her, he finally said, avoiding my eyes. Nodding, I turned to clean the mess. The room tilted violently. My feverish body collapsed against his chest, the afternoon downpour exacting its price. Through fading consciousness, I ensured he saw the childhood relics on my shelves. The music box he'd regifted from admirers, the stuffed bear given under David's scrutiny, curtain tassels passed off as birthday presents. Every meaningless token I cherished. All the journals were placed on my bookshelf. Michael might have thought I had ulterior motives if he saw them before, but after declaring I wanted nothing today, these items suddenly gained sentimental value. I was just a younger brother yearning for familial affection and seeking approval from my older sibling. My mother was brought back the next afternoon. Though traumatized and jumpy around everyone except me, I immediately signed the equity relinquishment documents for Michael, submitted my resignation from the Research Institute, left all the jewelry and valuables David provided us in the Brown family mansion, and only packed basic necessities. Brother, I paused, correcting myself. Mr. Brown, the cards are all here. We'll finalize the divorce paperwork with Dad once my mother's mental state improves. Uncharacteristically, Michael asked, "Where will you live after leaving the family?" I smiled bitterly. "Don't worry, Mr. Brown. We didn't keep keys to any other Johnson family properties. That's not what I meant. We'll rent temporarily until I secure employment." As I bowed and turned to leave, Michael's gravelly voice stopped me. "You've always seemed afraid of me?" Without facing him, I replied, "During our first spring festival at the Johnson estate, when Elder Smith visited, I brought fruit to your study. I overheard your conversation about Mother and me. Elder Smith worried I'd claim the family fortune. You said, 'Dad's still young. If it's not this mistress, it'll be another. Better let this one occupy the title for now. If the boy causes trouble later, we can always dispose of him.'" The silence thickened. Opening the door, I finally met his gaze. I was too young then to protect us. I thought minimizing myself, enduring humiliation silently, would keep us safe. Growing up, I realized you'd despise me regardless. That's why I left the country. I know you blame Mother for your own mothers, but she truly believed Dad was single when they met. Marrying into the family was her desperate attempt to give me a better life. Call me a bastard all you want, Mr. Brown, but she's also a victim. Stop shaming her to her face. When Michael tried to speak, I shook my head. Thank you for the Johnsons' patronage over the years. Goodbye. John called immediately after my departure, offering properties to stay in. Without refusal, I settled Mother in a premium sanatorium and moved in. Casually, I proposed working at Wilson Medical Center. Hesitating, John worried until I assured him, "I won't touch core projects. Just need a lab." My research on second-gen pheromone inhibitors made significant progress during grad school. As he agreed, I lowered my eyes to hide contempt. "You're so kind, John. You're all I have now." Flushed and emboldened, John reached for my waist until Ryan's timely phone call interrupted. Watching him scramble, I smiled understandingly. "Go ahead, Lucas. I'll visit often," he promised. So marriage downgraded to visits? Am I your mistress now? Maintaining the charade, I later dismissed my assistant's concerns about the subpar residence. When informed John and Ryan obtained their marriage license, I scoffed. Expected. Ambitious alphas like John won't pass up inheriting the Smith fortune. Leak news about the inhibitor breakthrough anonymously. Only disclose my involvement when Michael investigates. Then let Ryan discover I'm at Wilson Medical. The pieces were moving. Lucas acted swiftly. Within 2 days, news about the second-generation pheromone inhibitors spread throughout the capital. On the 3rd day, Ryan came knocking. "Lucas, you've got some nerve. Mr. Smith, I don't know what you're talking about." The newfound arrogance radiating from Ryan after a few days of playing the young master role made him seem like an entirely different person from the timid pushover he'd been before. Cut the act. A disgraced Johnson family reject like you should know better than to challenge me. I dropped my facade. John chooses to pursue me. Ryan, if you're so upset, why not stop him from coming around? You! His face paled with rage. Leaning closer, I whispered, "While you were suffering through morning sickness, prenatal checkups, and sleepless nights struggling to breathe during pregnancy, John was in my bed every night." "You bitch!" Ryan shoved me hard, hand raised to strike. Before I could block him, someone else intercepted. "Johnson family matters aren't yours to discipline." Michael threw Ryan's arm aside, stepping between us. "Come home. Now." Ryan pleaded desperately. "Cousin." The word cousin momentarily disoriented me. It took several seconds to regain composure. "Mr. Brown, I no longer have ties to the Johnson family." My meek tone contrasted sharply with my earlier defiance. He was completely different just now. Ryan sputtered indignantly. Michael showed no sympathy for his newly acknowledged relative. "Get out." I kept my eyes downcast. "Mr. Brown should take Ryan home. He's pregnant. After all, I need to return to work. Father wants to see you," Michael insisted, gripping my wrist. I stopped resisting with a quiet okay. En route to the hospital, I requested to change clothes first. Michael's car detoured to Yuajun Villa. "John put you here?" Michael's jaw tightened at the luxury complex notorious for being a mistress haven among the capital's elite. Is there a problem? I feigned innocence. Nothing, he ground out through clenched teeth. At the hospital, David had conveniently forgotten his previous violent outburst, beaming like a doting father. Lucas, try these shrimp, flown in fresh this morning. Michael subtly rotated the platter toward me. I picked up a shrimp only to set it down uneaten. Preparation not to your liking? David pressed. I remember you loving shrimp. I'm allergic to seafood. My voice wavered. That was always Michael's favorite. The awkward silence lingered until David recovered. Of course. Let's order something else. After the strained meal, David finally revealed his agenda. Return to Johnson Corp. Keep your 10% shares. We'll seat you on the board. No, he continued undeterred. The Smiths overstepped. I've dealt with them, old mister. Smith's been shipped overseas for convalescence. Your mother will have round-the-clock protection. Protection? More like surveillance to force my compliance. David sought his own cure. Michael coveted the inhibitor's profits. Father and son shared the same ruthless DNA, willing to sacrifice dignity and allies alike. Resuming my obedient son persona, I whispered, "All right." The moment we returned, Michael severed all contact between me and John. John Wilson blamed everything on Ryan Smith. With the Smith patriarch sent abroad and no one left to back him up, John reverted to his old playboy ways, even bringing people back to the home he'd shared with Ryan. The stress caused Ryan to miscarry. Smith family relatives descended like vultures, swarming the hospital to demand he surrender his remaining shares. Yet John showed no remorse, continuing his debauchery. I arranged for Daniel White, now carrying an infectious disease, to cross paths with him. John became obsessed instantly. Michael Brown seemed to have truly let go of past grievances, openly acknowledging our relationship at the corporation. He personally mentored me in management strategies. After I successfully handled several major projects independently, the board members stopped underestimating me. In reciprocity, I sold the second-generation inhibitor patent to Brown Enterprises through equity shares. Michael now held 15%. I possessed 12%. And David Taylor retained 15%. When issues arose with the American Branch project, Michael flew overseas to address them. I maintained my usual obedient demeanor while seeing him off at the airport. Before boarding, he handed me a velvet box containing a sapphire wristwatch, claiming it was an early birthday gift in case he missed the date. I extended my wrist as he fastened the timepiece. Examining it thoughtfully, I murmured with genuine appreciation, "Thanks, Michael. I love it." He squeezed the nape of my neck before disappearing into the jetway. The moment his plane taxied away, I mobilized security teams with Jiang Sun to surround David's hospital. Entering his room holding a medical vial, I found him smiling obliviously. "Lucas, what brings you here today?" Placing the reagent on his bedside table, I answered, "This treats hormone dysregulation syndrome." His smile evaporated as he lunged for the vial. My guards restrained him against the mattress. "Give it," he snarled, thrashing wildly. "Consider our family bond," I said calmly. "Mom's enjoying Bali with several well-built alphas as we speak." "Where's Michael?" "I demand to see Michael. He's halfway to New York by now." "You treacherous snake." David spat. "A shareholder offered me 5% equity for this cure. Out of filial piety, I came to you first." "Never." I turned to leave. He cracked at 3 steps. 5%. No more. How coincidental, that's exactly what the shareholder offered. 6% then. Add the Smith family's 30% stake. And we have a deal. Defeated. David rasped. "Done." As I exited, he whispered hoarsely, "I did care for you once, Lucas." I paused at the door. Funny, the Wilsons never researched second-generation inhibitors. That was my fabrication through John after my return. His ashen face brought me profound satisfaction. When Michael returned, the corporate landscape had shifted. My original 12% stake, combined with David's 6% and accumulated shares, now totaled 20% control. The game board had been reset. I became the largest shareholder of the conglomerate. When Michael came to see me, His clothes still carried the dust of travel. "Michael," I called out before falling silent. He studied my face with unfamiliar intensity, as though seeing me for the first time, his gaze lingering for what felt like eternity. "When did this start?" The weight of silence shifted to me. Michael strode forward, but Lucas stepped between us. "Get lost." Michael raised his hand, but I intercepted his movement. "Lucas, please wait outside." "Second young master." Lucas hesitated. I shook my head, watching him leave with reluctant backward glances. Tugging at Michael's sleeve like the timid boy I'd once been, I asked, "Did you just land?" His eyes darkened. "You called this shareholders' meeting, didn't you?" Meeting his gaze, I stated, "I want your position as executive director. I'll buy your shares at market peak price." "Delusional," he snapped, anger surfacing. "What if I trade the Smith family's shares with old Mr. Smith?" His pupils constricted. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm simply returning the favor." Unbuttoning my shirt, I revealed the map of scars across my torso. Michael's composure cracked when his eyes traced the bullet wound near my heart. "This," pointed, "from an assassination attempt during my first year abroad. The burn mark here, kidnappers branding iron in year 2. These needle tracks. Would you like to see more?" For the first time, I searched his eyes for disgust or mockery. Found nothing. His hand hovered near my scars before I stepped back. "I just wanted to study, build a life, bring my mother over, find a compatible beta partner someday, adopt kids." My voice tightened. "You never left me any choice." "Not my doing," he rasped. "I know it was the Smiths." Buttoning my shirt, I added softly, "Never blamed you." Meetings starting. I turned to leave, but his grip tightened, sapphire watch glinting between us. "Did it hurt?" Bad timing for that question. "Michael." Vulnerability before battle meant defeat. When he didn't release me, I peeled his fingers away. Of course it hurt. The pain fades. Eventually. At the shareholders' meeting, Michael resigned as executive director. I kept my promises, took what I needed, gave what I'd pledged. Epilogue. Michael's perspective the first time I saw Lucas. He was barely 6 years old. Standing in the living room with his mother, Lucas' eyes shone bright and clear. Neatly dressed with an air of intellectual refinement. He looked nothing like someone who'd just come from the slums. David told me to call her mom and acknowledge Lucas as my brother. I ignored him, smashed the glass in my hand, and went upstairs. At first Lucas wasn't afraid of me. He'd follow me around, watching me with those earnest eyes, trying to make conversation. Later he stopped initiating talks, shrinking back like a startled rabbit whenever I approached. Yet he'd rush to help whenever I needed anything. When David transferred him to our school, the whole circle knew about the Johnson family drama. His classmates mocked and isolated him. I knew but didn't care. My own mother had just died, and part of me relished his suffering. That night, I watched Lucas circle his mother multiple times before timidly asking for a pendant. The newlywed Mrs. Johnson didn't dare ask David, telling him to focus on studies instead. I yanked a synthetic stone pendant from the curtains, lying it was emerald. Lucas beamed. "Brother, thank you. When I grow up, I'll definitely buy you something just as expensive." I later threw his gift away. When grandfather called saying David planned to transfer 10% shares to Lucas, I thought, see, they're scheming. Years later, when trying to buy back those cufflinks from his lab partner, I learned Lucas had spent 3 hours choosing them, then hours more searching icy waters. He emerged shaking violently, fingers lacerated but too frozen to bleed. The partner refused my offer, saying, "Mr. Brown, some things can't be bought." At the Wilson Family Alliance meeting, I called Lucas an illegitimate child to his face. The color draining from his cheeks made me instantly regret it. Before I could apologize, his mother got kidnapped. That night, I sat by Lucas' bed watching him sleep, David's belt marks still angry red across his back. Each subconscious scratch made me flinch. After applying ointment, I held his hands until dawn. Hill returned to the company after healing. I decided, better than being tricked by that John Wilson scum. But Lucas outmaneuvered us all, solving second-gen pheromone inhibitors and hormonal disorders that stumped researchers for decades. Now powerless. I sold Smith family shares to expand overseas after grandfather fell ill from Johnson family harassment. At the airport, Lucas handed me my boarding pass. I won't concede defeat, I warned. Whatever. He didn't meet my eyes. Release my mother and I'll show mercy. But if you return, I'll be crueler than your grandfather ever was. Years later at a charity gala, a drunk Johnson Group shareholder slurred, "There's this guy around Lucas. Looks just like you." Did double take thinking you'd crawled back. The ice in my scotch cracked louder than his laughter. A shareholder asked Lucas why he hired someone who looked so similar just to piss himself off. Lucas replied that he'd always been the one groveling before. Now that the original was gone, he'd paid for a look alike to vent his frustration. I asked the shareholder, "Didn't Lucas come this time?" The shareholder shook his head. "Young Mr. Johnson never travels to the States for business." Later, when I had business in Germany, I was about to leave when someone mentioned Lucas was also in Berlin. I got his hotel address, took a cab there, and stood across the street just wanting to glimpse him from afar. Snow fell as he stepped out of the hotel with an umbrella. He disappeared into his car within seconds. I stayed frozen there until a passerby tapped my shoulder. Only then did I brush the snow off my coat and turn around, to find Lucas standing behind me, his black umbrella frosted white. He'd clearly been waiting, yet grinned like this was chance. "Michael," he said, breath fogging the air. "What luck?" I was heading back inside for hot coffee. "Care to join?"